Okay, now go. There you go.
This is a Singer Fashion Mate 257. I believe they made these back in the 60s. Anyway, this machine was built in Italy, and it is very heavy. It's even though it's got a plastic top and plastic bit here, the rest of this is cast iron, and this thing weighs probably 25 pounds. Yeah. And it's pretty heavy. So I'm going to show you a little bit about just quick things on this. For one thing, when you change the needle, you're unscrewing this little hand screw right here. Okay, turn it counterclockwise. You pull your needle out, and you notice on needles there's a flat side and there's a rounded side.
Yes.
And the front of the needle that you always thread through, I don't know if you can see this very well, maybe, maybe not. There is a groove that is engineered. A groove here, right here. This is a special little groove that the thread travels into when you're making a stitch. And so this was an important invention when the needles were first being made. So without this groove, you would end up with a lot of loopiness. So anyway, this is the side. You always put your thread in from the front to the back, through the whole, the eye of the needle, but you always want to be starting from the side that has the groove in it. The back side just has a little dent there. Anyway, so you have the flat side, which is the back side of your needle, and you went into the shaft on your machine and tighten the screw. And that will hold your needle in the right place, and your needle is situated so that the hole is facing you, which is very convenient in these particular machines. In older machines, you have to go from the side, either the left side or the right side, depending on how the machine is set up. But on this particular machine, and in most modern machines, it is, you just thread it straight through the front. And even somebody who is old and nearsighted like me can usually get the machine threaded easily. Now, this is a lock stitch machine, which means that it uses two threads to sew. One that comes from the top, so that's your top thread, and then you have a thread that is in your bobbin. And I'm going to show you how to do a little maintenance on this thing. Actually, I'll show you how to thread it first, because that's probably the thing you're most interested in. So, it's very easy to pull the bobbin out. All bobbins, this is something you need to know, not all bobbins are created equal. Different machines take different types of bobbins, and it is the easiest way to find out is to look, find out what model of Singer you have, make a note of that, and then if you need to go buy more bobbins, at the sewing store they usually say on the back of the package, will fit Singer model this, that, or the other. And this is a 257. It uses bobbins that are slightly curved. I don't know if you can see that on top, but these are old bobbins. They're very well made. They have this little hole on them, and they're used in other machines as well, in other Singer machines, but this one has kind of a curved top. I'll turn it so you can see that it's kind of slightly taller at the ends, at the middle there, than it is on the sides. Okay. Anyway, so you have your bobbin wound. Actually, I should probably show you how to wind a bobbin. I'm not going to worry about that right now.
I can do that, Mom.
Okay, anyway, so when you are putting your bobbin in, you want to have this thing turning so that when you pull on the thread, it turns counterclockwise. Okay, drop that in there. Now, the other thing that you need to pay attention to, so you've got your bobbin thread in there now, you want to come and bring your thread over and get it caught underneath this little finger here, which is, there's a spring in front that you can adjust for tension if you need to, but I expect that there are things online that you can read that will give better illustrations of how to adjust the tension. This is already adjusted for this particular thread. So anyway, you bring your thread over, and then there's a little notch right here, and that's how you know you've got your bobbin set in there correctly. This is also pretty cool because in older machines, you have a bobbin case that you have to put your bobbin into. This one, you just have a drop-in. So you just slide shut your your little door there. To bring the thread up from the underneath the throat plate to the top of your machine, you turn your hand wheel by hand. It's the one you grab with your hand. And the little mnemonic that we use is forward forever, backwards never. So now, just by turning that slowly by hand, that brings both threads up. And to prepare for sewing, you just bring your threads between the toes of your presser foot. I don't know if you saw that or not. Okay, so between the toes of your presser foot, just straight back, and you put a piece of fabric under there. And grab something else that I have. I'm going to pause it.
Yeah, pause. Go.
Okay, good. All right, so we have a little piece of cotton fabric here. To start sewing, you just lower your, see where my hand is here? I'm just going to lower the presser foot, right? And I have it set on, this is this straight, or if it goes zigzag, and this is pretty self-explanatory. That will cause it to do the widest zigzag it does. Of course, all the ones in the middle will allow you to that, and then all the way over to the left gives you a straight stitch. The same thing with, and then with needle position, you want to have that, if for zigzag you want to have that set in the middle, but you may want to move the needle over to, if you notice that when I push this needle position, it goes over to the left, to the center, or to the right. And that's handy for top stitching or adjusting how wide you make your seams. Have it just set in the middle. The other thing is that you want to have your stitch length. In other words, this controls how quickly the feed dogs, which are on the underside, but they're below. In other words, I'll show you this. See these little zigzaggy looking, or these are feed dogs, and what that does is that moves the material. As you can see, when I turn the hand wheel, now I'm going forward right now, but it will also, you can tell your machine to go backwards. But anyway, these push the material through the machine while it's stitching underneath the presser foot. So what the adjustment does is that it adjusts the ratio, or how quickly your feed dogs will feed the material through the machine. If it does it very fast, in other words, you have a long stitch, like what these numbers mean are the number of stitches per inch. Okay, so you can adjust this by unscrewing this little knob here. You can have a really long stitch, which is handy for basting, which, if you don't know what basting is, it means temporarily together and then you'll be doing other things with them later on to then you permanently stitch them. Use smaller stitches for permanent stitching. But for basting, say for example, like you want to put a zipper in, you would baste your zipper in. And what basting is just a very long stitch. In fact, I'll demonstrate that right now. This is basting. Okay, so that's a pretty big stitch. There are 6 stitches per inch there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
For normal sewing, and I see a lot of beginning sewers or people who don't know what the hell they're doing think that they have to have tiny, tiny stitches, and I'll tell you what, that's a mistake, because if you ever have to take something out, you're going to be sorry that you used so many tiny stitches. So I would recommend that you set your machine at somewhere between 10 and 12 stitches per inch.
Okay.
Okay?
Yep.
So this is going to be 12, this is about 10 stitches per inch. Turn this, leave the needle down, make it a little finer. You can adjust this to your own personal taste, but most sewing experts recommend that you use somewhere around 12 stitches per inch. Now, one of the things that you want to pay attention to is that you have an even stitch tension, or thread tension. And if you notice on these, you see how there's a little, like, where every stitch is finished here, there's a little bit of an indentation of the thread. That should be the same on both the top and the bottom.
Got it.
And so if you need to have more of an indentation on the bottom, then you would adjust your top thread. And usually you don't have to mess around with adjusting the thread tension on the bottom.
And the way you adjust the tension is through this
Yes, right.
device.
And this is set at 0 right now, which is just a neutral position.
Okay.
If you want your tension to be higher, in other words, more drag on the thread, then you turn it to the right, where there's a little positive sign here, and then there's the neutral mark, and then there's a negative sign over here. So to the right is tighter, and then left would be looser. Okay. And so your 0 is the one that you want to pay attention to. So you want to turn to the left or to the right. Okay, so you match up your 0 and your top mark here, and that means that you have balanced tension, or everything should be. That's your starting point.
Groovy.
You may have to change this when you are using different types of thread. Even just different makes of thread. This happens to be very good German-made thread, Gütermann. Also the Scandinavian thread. Gütermann's pretty popular, and that's pretty common in this country. Don't use cheap thread. Don't bother with cheap thread. The cheap crap that you get at the dollar store, do not bother with. That is not worth messing with. The most expensive thing that you put into your sewing is your time. So, and also the next thing would be materials, and don't waste your time with cheap materials. You can get good quality materials inexpensively, but don't just buy cheap stuff.
Cotton, cotton, cotton.
Yeah, this one here is polyester, just for sewing purposes. And if you use polyester thread, that's good for sewing things that you like, clothing and so on. For quilting, you want to use cotton. Anyway, so I'm going to adjust the tension a little bit tighter there. I went to the halfway mark. We'll see how that looks on the bottom. Yeah, that's pretty good. Okay, so to give you an idea of what to do with this thing, and this is a thread cutter here. This is a handy thing on this thing also. On this shaft here, there's a little notch, and you just run your thread in there and pull down, and it cuts the thread just like that.
Okay.
So yours has a thread cutter on it too, but it's a spring one, and it wasn't in the right position before.
It kept on coming off.
Well, it may need to be replaced. It could be old and worn out, I mean, your machine is older than this one, so the one that you had was made, the 301 that you have was made in 1950 or 51. 51, I think, is the year those came out. Anyway, to maintain your machine, keep it clean. And that means keep thread and lint out of it. What you want to do is remove your presser foot. I tighten this up with a screwdriver because my fingers aren't as strong as they need to be. So I'm just going to turn this to, left is loose, right is tight. So I'm just going to turn that to the left a little bit. And that way I can unscrew that. And I don't have to unscrew it all the way to be able to get this presser foot off. Taking the presser foot off, don't lose it. Anyway, you can pull your
tray out.
Actually, you pull out the bobbin cover here.
Okay.
This just slides back and forth. There's a spring on the underside, and if this ever comes off, you can easily get it back into place. But then the other thing you want to do is use your screwdriver and just lift up on this throat plate, and then it'll just slide off just like that. It has a place right here where this goes. This is a spring-loaded job. This is just a stationary post. So usually when you pull these things off, you'll notice there's all kinds of lint and dirt that ends up accumulating in here and around in here. You can use a toothbrush, or you can use stuff like this, the canned air. It's worth it to get it. And you just spray it in there, and it will blow all the dirt and crud out of there. Anything that gets hung up in your machine, thread, lint, and so on, will impede it from functioning optimally. So you want to make sure that if you keep it clean, I mean, these things are not really, let's put it this way, it's like your car. Keep it maintained, it'll serve you well. This thing is old, it's made at through how many generations of sewers? It will last many more generations if you just take care of it. So, I'm going to pull the bobbin out. I can just pull that out with my hands, okay?
Okay.
And the other thing that you want to do is, there's a little spring here. This is a keeper that keeps your bobbin case. This is your bobbin case in place. You just want to pick that up. See this little hole here? This little post here? You just lift it up and you pivot it over like that. And then what you want to do is just lift your bobbin case out. And usually in here you want to get in with a toothbrush. I've done this before when I was preparing the machine for you, so you don't want to, there shouldn't be too much crud in it, but you would just want to take your toothbrush and make sure you turn the hand wheel so that the oscillator moves all the way around. Just get all the lint, and you can use your canned air again if you want. But that gets all the crud and stuff out. You can use Q-tips to clean this thing also. Anyway, that's pretty clean. Now, you know
about oiling before.
Okay, I'm just going to show that here. Okay, so I don't know if you can see this or not, but there's a little groove here on the side of this bobbin case. That's where I'm running the pin right now. Oh, the other thing is, there's a, that's where you want to put oil, is in that groove, okay?
Okay.
But also, you may notice here that there's this spring. This is a spring. This is your thread tension spring for your bobbin case. This is the one that you use to adjust. Either turn to the right for tighter, turn to the left for looser, and what that does is it puts drag on the thread. Do not unscrew this, because that's the one that just holds the spring on there. It doesn't do any adjusting. It's just one to hold. So the one that's the furthest to the right, don't mess with that one. This is the one that you can adjust with your tiny little screwdriver. And you only have to make tiny turns, tiny adjustments. You don't want to, you certainly don't want to crank it down with all your strength, because you'll break it. So this is designed to take small adjustments. And you put it, you adjust it. You don't have to pull this out to adjust it.
Right.
It'll be sat in the machine, but you can get at it with a screwdriver, okay, with a little tiny screwdriver. Anyway, so what you want to do is put some oil in this little groove here. Not much, just a tiny, and the kind of oil that you use is like this. Stuff that is specifically, it's very light oil, it's specifically for sewing machines. Don't use motor oil. Don't use cooking oil. Okay, so anyway, so this little job, I'm going to lift the needle up out of the way. Don't stab yourself on the needle. Oh, by the way, now you have a better view of the feed dogs. These are the ones, these have little teeth, and they just shove the fabric through underneath the presser foot there. Anyway, so what you want to do is you just want to set this in like that. See how I have that pressed up against that, that groove that I showed you?
Mm-hmm.
That matches with this little ledge here, okay?
Okay.
You see there's a little hook here, that's a hook. There's a little groove. Okay, so you set it in like this, okay, with your finger notch on the left-hand side. This is the right side up. This is the wrong side up. So, right side up with the words singer. Even though the singer is upside down, don't worry about it. There's also a little spot that you see this little notch here. That fits with this thing. That fits with this. There's a little post here that corresponds with.
Okay.
So we're going to set this in, and you see how that little finger matches this post, and you have it all the way over to the left, and you have it seated properly, okay? And then all you do is pop your spring back over, and it seats on the post. And to make sure you've got it seated properly, you just turn your hand wheel, and everything should move smoothly.
Great.
If it hangs up, then you've screwed it up and you need to do it over again. So don't force it because you'll
Break it.
screw up your machine. Anyway, to get this back on, all you do is you catch this little post and you just pop that right on.
Cool.
And that replaces, that's so much easier. Old machines, you usually have to unscrew a screw to get the throat plate off. But to get access on this one, you just lift it off. It's spring-loaded. Now,
Cool.
again, I'm going to set my bobbin in like that. Get the thread to go over that little finger. Pull it over. It'll catch. Goes into that. Okay, so the other thing we need to do is put our presser foot back on. This is our presser foot. Sewing machines have all different kinds of presser foots available. This is the standard one. This is your go-to one. This is your everyday one that you're going to use. It just has 2 toes and a place for the needle to go through. And so you just hook that on there. And I always recommend to use, you don't have to crank it down very hard, but just, just tighten it slightly so it won't be loose. Okay, I know these are designed to be done by hand, but somehow they tend to come loose. I don't turn them tight, probably don't turn them heavily or tightly enough. So anyway, hold your top thread. Turn your hand wheel forward forever, backwards never. And you see how this thread comes across here? It catches, and you bring it up, and voila, you have your machine ready to go if you want to shorten that thread. One of the things that really helps when you're sewing, okay, you lower the presser foot. When you're starting out sewing, if you hold the bobbin thread and the top thread back, you won't end up having
the nest egg, the bird's nest.
Yeah, the bird's nest. In other words, the thread will not get all goobered up underneath your throat plate and cause you to cry. So anyway, I'm going to tighten.
There's no crying in quilting.
There's no crying in quilting. Well, yes, there is. A lot of cussing too. So anyway, here you go. And we are ready to sew here. One thing I also would like to mention to you is when you sew, or when you're done using your machine, you're putting it away for the day, you're going to transport it. Put a piece of fabric there underneath the presser foot, lower your presser foot, and lower your needle. And that will keep everything in place. It protects the machine. It will keep it a lot happier. You won't have things rattling around and so on. I know it seems like a silly thing, like it's not going to rattle apart, but it's a nicer thing to do for your sewing machine. So that is it as far as...
Oh, do the threading.
Oh, oh, okay. Well, I'll show you threading.
Just so, in case she needs an extra.
Now, let me bring this up. Cut that off. Okay. Right. First of all, always use the same thread in the top of your machine as you have in the bobbin. In other words, don't just use any old bobbin of thread in the bottom and sew with a different top thread. Use the same thread. You'll be happier, life will be easier, and you'll have better tension and better evenness of stitches and so on. So, to thread this baby, use good thread. Put that up there on your shaft. First, it goes through, not around this. This one here is for
the bobbin.
Winding bobbins. Okay, and I can show how to wind a bobbin here in a second. But first of all, it goes through this hook. You don't have to thread it through. There's a little thing that you just pop it through. Pull it straight through. It'll catch. Okay. Then it goes around between these two. There are 2 discs here that are your thread tension discs. Okay, it goes in this spot here, not in front. It goes in here between these 2 discs. Okay, so you have through the discs. Okay, and then What I would do is, just to make life easier, I would lower the presser foot, because that will cause your discs to compress together, and that way you're not trying to thread something where you have nothing to pull against. So basically you bring your thread up against this spring, you bring it up, and it'll go over that little finger. I don't know if you can see that little finger there, this little finger here. Okay?
Yes.
Alright, I'm going to do that one more time. Raise your presser foot, that releases the tension on the tension discs there. So from your bobbin to this guide, then through your tension discs, okay? And also, of course, the thread goes behind this little keeper as well. You can see this thing on. Okay, so then you lower the presser foot, bring your thread up against the spring, and it will slide up past that finger, and there you go. And then, see, this is also an important thing. See how this spring works? That helps pull thread forward at a proper rate so that you get the right tension on your thread. So next, you thread your thread through, excuse this bit here, through this on the take-up arm, okay? Here we go. So it goes through there. Now you can raise your foot again. Your presser foot.
Okay.
Okay, so it goes through the take-up arm. And then it comes down here through this little keeper. Okay, did you see that?
Yeah.
So this little bar here, there's a little notch. And the thread goes through there. Then it goes through this little keeper, and there's one here, and then it goes to the needle. So it goes through this little keeper. Okay, one here, one here. Okay.
Okay.
Through here.
Okay.
All right. And then you just straight back through the eye of your needle. If I can get that to go. Is your friend nearsighted?
Nope.
Good. He's doing better than me. Okay,
Me
so you
too.
just push that through.
Okay.
Okay, so right now, see, the thread pulls easily while you have the presser foot up, because there's no, the tension discs are released.
Right.
When you lower your presser foot, then it automatically puts tension on these tension discs, and then that way your thread doesn't pull through very easily. So here we go. We have top thread, bottom thread,
All thread.
between the toes. Break that off if you want. And again, lower your presser foot, grab your little threads, and voila, you're ready to go.
Bam.
Now, if you want to do zigzag, you adjust your stitch width, okay? So you can go very wide, and zigzag is handy for like the edges of seams or fabric that you're going to be putting a seam into, so that they don't fray.
Right, that makes sense.
So that makes a nice zigzag. If you want something that's at the set at the same rate as the at the same stitch length as the regular sewing was at. If you want to do something that's a little bit more zigzaggy as far as maintaining your the edges of your seam allowance, then you can probably do that. Or if you want something that is like for overcasting, say like you wanted to do applique, you adjust the stitch length to the fine area. going to loosen that up a little bit on top.
Oh, cool.
And if you even want to get finer, we'll do what they call a couching stitch, so it's almost solid. So just by adjusting the stitch length, you can, and the stitch width,
right,
you can do some pretty fancy things.
Cool. All right.
So anyway, I'm going to set this back to neutral. I'm going to set it back to just straight stitch. Needle position is in the center. And there you go. You're good to go. So I'm going to let this machine, and then the light is up here. This is the light on and off.
There you go.
The other thing you need to pay attention to is this controls how much pressure the presser foot puts on the fabric. So if you are sewing something that is a heavy fabric where you need a little more oomph to get the feed dogs to push it through,
like denim or something like that?
Like denim.
Okay.
Then instead of having it set on normal, you would go on to maximum, okay? That's max.
Got it.
Okay, here is back to normal, and then of course, you know, that this is for darning, which means if you want no pressure at all, maybe that's what drops the feed dogs. I never tried that. Let me see what happens. Maybe that allows you to do free motion quilting. Oops, you'd have to turn it on.
Yep.
Ah, so that drops the feed dogs. How do you like that?
Nice.
So the feed dogs are not engaging at all. And this way you can write your name. Is it R-E-G?
Yes. How fancy.
Okay, so that's how that works.
Cool.
So I didn't realize that dropped the feed dogs. How do you like that?
Well, you learn something new every day.
Or maybe it doesn't drop the feed dogs, but it does. I don't know what it did.
It gives you enough loose. It's loose enough so you can.
It's loose enough. Yeah. I wonder if the feed dogs do drop on this thing. I don't know. I'd have to look. I don't have a manual, but they do have manuals online. So.
And what's the number of this again?
257. It's a Singer Fashion Mate 257.
Okay.
And these are damn good little machines.
Yes,
Made in Italy. Good thing. So. Anyway, I don't know if there's anything else.
I think that's pretty much it.
When you're oiling your machine, you look online, get a manual. There are a couple of things that you'll need to do. One would be to remove this faceplate that allows you to apply oil to any of the moving parts that are inside here. And I can unscrew that and show you real quick. Unscrew, unscrew, unscrew. These are very simple machines, but oops, there you go. Don't lose the screw.
I've got the screw.
Don't lose the screw.
Okay, so where would she?
Any place when you turn the hand wheel, any place you see a moving part, where two pieces of metal rub against each other, like
oil, like
here, up here. If you look inside, I don't know if you can see, but there is there's an arm here that moves back and forth. There are things, where your presser foot goes up and down. You can see that.
Right,
Any shaft. Any place where you see two pieces of metal that move,
oil.
Put together. Yeah, you don't have to go crazy. You don't have to drown it. But that will definitely make your machine. And, these machines, even though this has a plastic cover up here and plastic down here, the important parts, the guts of it, the heart of it, is all metal. It is all machined to fit precisely. It is not going to die and break and wear out the way the cheap, crappy machines that came from China back in the 70s were made. So this machine will last you a
Forever.
lifetime, provided you don't run over it with a pickup truck or anything like that. You could probably drop it out of the back of the pickup truck and it would be fine. It'd be hard on the case. But anyway, so right is tight, left is loose. You just get that to catch. And this just keeps dirt and stuff out of the works of your machine. Okay, so there's that. There's also 2 screws that hold, let me get this here, that hold your case top on. Now, one is in a sneaky space. If you look, take a picture up here. You see how you have this little red piece of felt?
Mm-hmm.
Look at there. There's a screw there. There's a screw
So
here.
there is.
There are 2 screws. So there's a screw here. Unscrew that. And you unscrew this one. Just unscrew it. And the whole business should lift up. Unscrew that a little bit more. Just like that, okay?
Oh, okay.
So, well, this does have a little piece of plastic in it. I lied. But everything else is, I mean, this is easy to service and replace. A repairman should be able to do that. This is what controls your stitch zigzag. Okay, this is it either engages a cam or it doesn't. So, and it also adjusts where this one down here adjusts with your needle position. But this one is a cam that that controls the width of your zigzag. Anyway, any place you see, what are you doing?
Oh no,
Oh, okay.
sorry.
Any place you see a hole like that,
There's a hole.
hole like that, shaft here.
Again, metal parts.
Yeah, metal parts, metal against metal. You know, if you see lint, brush it out with your toothbrush here, not the one that you use every day. And any place that you see, you know, it's the one for you keep for your machine. Here's a spot where oh, that's where the screw goes. But anyway, any place that you see metal against metal, here where this gear and this worm gear is, you know, oil, doesn't hurt a thing. Don't put oil, for fuck's sake, excuse me, don't put oil on.
It's okay, you can say
Okay,
fuck.
well, okay. Well, like here, but for Pete's sake, don't put oil on your drive, your rubber drive, because guess what? You want friction there. So, anyway, you just set this baby back down on there. It's easy to seat. And you just screw the screws back on. And that keeps everything where it needs to stay.
Okay.
All of this stuff is explained online. There are manuals out the wazoo that should tell you exactly what you need to do. There we go. Put your little felt jobby back there that allows the thread to move smoothly. Anyway, I'll thread this again here, here. Pull that out. Open here, pressure foot down, tension, down. Word forever, here we go. Here, 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 and then through the needle.
Cool.
And this is just a general purpose size needle. I believe this is like a Schmetz. Schmetz is a very excellent brand. Don't buy cheap, crappy needles either. And buy good German-made needles. The Germans know how to make needles. And they're precisely made. And they are you know, that's what sews. So get good ones. They may be expensive, but it's worth it. And don't be afraid to, change them frequently.
They do get dull.
If you and Laura can get together and buy a box of 100 of them, it's like $20. If you go to buy needles at the like Joann's or the fabric store, boy, they see you coming and they probably charge you $1 a piece for needles. So if you can buy them in bulk, you can get them online on eBay. Get the right size.
What's the appropriate size? Is there a size number?
Off the top of my head, I don't remember.
Okay.
It's like a 135 that has to do with the shaft length and the top of the... Let me look at my machine. Hang on a second.
Okay.
Schmitz. Okay. These are... here we are. System 130/705H.
Okay.
Okay. And there is these are 90s. That corresponds, I think, to a size 10. But I bought this box years ago. There's 100 of them in here. And I got it for like $20, I think. So, it's well worth it to get good needles and to change them frequently. I mean, this little lid slides open here like that. Hold it right side up. So there's a little paper in here that keeps the needles from getting corroded or rusted. But anyway, comes with, this is maybe a third of the box left, and I've been using these for a long time. So buy good needles. These are the size on these, in other words, the thickness, is determined, or the size needle that you use is determined by the thickness of the fabric that you're using. I think these are like 10s or 12s. If you are sewing heavier fabric, you want to use something that's like a 14 or a 16, or even an 18. That's for like denim. And you want to use something that's like a 10 or a 9 or an 8 for really fine fabric like silk or something like that. But for the most part, most of the time when you're sewing, these 12s, 10 12s will work
for what
adequately,
you need.
just for everything that you need. They're really good needles, and the fabric stores will really give you a screwing on the price. Buy them online, buy them in bulk. They'll last forever. Same needles will work in this machine as in your slant shaft, in your slant machine. And that's it. And so she's ready to go again.
Cool.
And that's all I can say about that. Okay.
All right.
I think. Oh, did I lift this thing up? I didn't.
No, you haven't.
Okay. When you want to turn the light off, this light also controls whether the machine will go or not. If you don't have the light on, guess what? It won't work.
No worky.
Right. So under here, you have a drive. Don't get oil on this. Okay. This drive band makes your machine go. But any place that you see like metal on metal down here, right here, that pivot point down here, this pivot point here, this one here, there's a pivot point here, there's one here, here. Don't just squirt oil indiscriminately. Use it. You don't need to use a lot, but clean it off and put a little oil. Machine will be much happier. This sucker's heavy, so, and there's a little thing that you turn here to keep it latched up, and that's it.
Okay, cool. Thanks, Mom.
Okay.